You're listening to Boobies and Newbies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to a special holiday edition of Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today's romance review marks the 5th episode in Boobies and Newbies' 4th annual holiday special, The 12 Days of Boobsmas. This December, we're lusting after stern Christmas daddies, naughty bondage scenes with ribbon, and of course, candy cane condoms. So get ready because we've got 12 holiday-themed romances, 12 mini-pods, and 12 giveaways coming your way in December. Join us all month long and be sure to keep up with us across our social media channels for any upcoming giveaway news and opportunities. And if you feel like giving a little extra holiday cheer this winter season, please consider leaving this naughty elf a review on Apple Podcasts or supporting the podcast on Patreon. You will find links to all of our social media in the show notes for this episode, and as always, you can find them along with our full catalog of episodes, book recs, and so much more on boobiesandnewbies.com. And now, on to today's merry madness. Joining me today for the 5th day of our Boobsmas Spectacular is returning guest of the pod, Isabella Costa. Isabella previously appeared in our 2019 Boobsmas review of How to Capture a Duke by Bianca Blythe. And now she's taking on what I like to call Santarotica. Please join me in welcoming my girl, Isabella.
Hi, Kelly.
I don't know if I can officially say that I've coined the term Santarotica, but it is what I am now and forever will call Santa romances.
Yeah, well, I'm feeling Santa-roused, so I'm ready to go.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, I mean, let the drinking game begin. Anytime we make a terrible Santa pun, let there be drinks.
Well, if that was the game, Marie got me drunk.
For real, oh my gosh, no. The amount of, not the ho-ho, holy fuck.
That was the quote. That was literally the first.
That's exactly how I began my review of this book on Goodreads was ho-ho, holy fuck, this book is amazing. Because it is, and I'm so excited to talk about it with you. Isabella and I were talking before we started recording about how she was desperately in need of a comfort read. And who knew that Santarotica is the book for that, but it absolutely is. And it was very comforting to me indeed. So we will get to that. But first, let's talk about the holidays because they're here. How did that happen?
Oh my God, this year just zoomed by. 2021 came and left in the blink of an eye.
It's so funny considering how long 2020 felt, how short 2021 felt. It was like complete opposite.
Well, it's like 2020 was this long haul, and then we stopped to catch our breath. Mm-hmm. And the time flies as you're catching your breath.
And then you're sprinting.
Yeah, yep.
Well, Isabella, I'd love to know, because along with reading holiday-themed romances this month, the 12 Days of Boobsmas is just as much about celebrating our favorite traditions, memories, yummies associated with the holiday season. So I'd love to know, how do you typically celebrate the holidays?
Well, holidays have changed for me now that I'm kind of growing up, living on my own for the first time, starting last year. Holidays were always very full of love and joy and a lot of decoration and a lot of festivity. And last year I moved into my own apartment for the first time, not fully alone because I do have a wonderful son, aka my cat. He's like a child. But I had such a weird experience last year being alone for the holidays because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I never realized that everyone else in my life like decorated and did all of the Christmas stuff, and I was just kind of along for the ride. So I'm living
Mm.
alone and nobody's coming over because there's a pandemic, and all of a sudden it's Christmas and there's no decorations in my house and no real spirit. And I was like, wow, Christmas sucks this year. And then I realized it's because I wasn't bringing my own Christmas spirit into the mix and I
Yeah.
was relying on others. So this year I'm very excited to decorate, make it a really fun holiday. Now I kind of have a little bit of a thing for Santa, so it's going to be a little more fun than it used to be.
There's always like this sense of shame that goes around anytime somebody starts talking about how they're decorating for Christmas and like it's not even Thanksgiving yet. And I feel like in 2020, that went away. It was like the first time where people were like, look, if you want to put up your Christmas tree or menorah or garlands in September, you do you. Whatever you need to find joy,
Right.
make
The
it
world
happen.
is ending. We might not make it to Christmas. Who knows? Let's get it in.
Yeah, for real. And so I know for me, last year I put up my little Christmas tree in my apartment in on Thanksgiving. I did it on Thanksgiving because I was making food and I was like, you know what? I'm spending Thanksgiving by myself. I'm still going to make all the food because I want things to eat. It's very high priority in my life. And I need a clean table to put things on. So I went out and I bought like a tablecloth and I got a little Christmas tree, and ornaments are my new thing that I collect when I travel because I have too many mugs now. So it was kind of fun
We had
to like
graduate onto something else.
Exactly. And so it was fun to like put them up on the tree, and I'm excited now like when I do go to visit people to find like a new ornament, and it just makes me look forward to Christmas like throughout the year to know that I have these things, these tokens that I'm collecting that I'll finally get to see all together like come December or October. I mean, whatever.
Right, exactly. Come whenever the Christmas joy hits.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you to find your spirit this holiday season and decorate. And are you a baker? Do you like to bake or cook during the holidays?
I do. I like to bake and cook with other people around. It doesn't bring me much joy alone, but I've got some wonderful friends that love to cook and have a big house.
Eat.
So yeah, and eat, yes. And that food really has been my favorite part of the holiday season growing up, because my favorite foods are those Thanksgiving, Christmas, wintry comfort foods. I love a mashed potato. I love a yam, all of that goodness. So I'm excited to eat all my Christmas foods this year.
Is there like a holiday food that you don't like a traditional holiday yummy that you're like, no thanks. I need more room for mashed potatoes. I don't need that.
I don't know. I don't really discriminate. I like my ideal, I think, holiday plate would be mashed potatoes, and I like peas. We would always do peas, and my thing was I would always mix my peas into the mashed potatoes.
Very British of you.
I know. Where did I get that from? So weird. So my mashed potatoes and peas, I love some gravy, some stuffing. My mom would always get the cranberry sauce from Trader Joe's that has the orange zest in it. They like grate orange zest into it, so it's like an orange cranberry. So that is very specific for me. I don't know. I love a chestnut.
Do you actually like take the time to like roast chestnuts?
No, but if they are roasted, I will eat them. Someone else can do the work for me.
Yeah,
I'm the same way in the summer with s'mores. I will not make my own s'mores, but I will go person to person at the party saying, "Hi, would you make me a s'more?"
Oh my God. That is so fun. Yeah, s'mores I think I can handle like one-on-one. I think I got it. But roasting chestnuts, and you know what? Maybe it's a super easy thing and I just don't know it, but it seems more complicated to me, which is silly because now that I think about it, s'mores are like multiple parts that you have to put together. And I feel like when you roast a chestnut, it's just like you roast a chestnut.
But
like,
what do you do? Do you put it in a pot and
I don't know.
Stick through it? Can you? Like
I have no idea.
What do you put it in to roast it?
I don't know. The only time I've ever had roasted chestnuts is I grew up in the San Francisco area, and every year at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, there are no cows. Don't get too excited. It's just the name of the building. They they have a Charles Dickens Christmas fair,
Oh,
and there's
adorable.
people dressed up in like, the historical garb, and they play games like there's like a game where you can like throw a shoe at these cardboard cats to like knock them down. It's like
Uh-huh.
boot the cat. And but they would sell little bags of roasted chestnuts, and I was like, I thought this was just part of a song. I didn't even
Right?
know this
Right?
actually happened.
Neither did I, but my mom, so we would go to New York City quite often, and whenever we were there for the holidays, the same way that they've got the little like hot dog stands or the pretzel stands in the wintertime, they've got little
Chestnuts?
chestnut stands, yeah. And my mom would be like, "Oh, we have to get some chestnuts. Have you ever tried a chestnut? Have you
Oh,
ever had a roasted chestnut?" So it was one of my
okay.
mom's like childhood things that then when we came across it, she had to insert into my childhood, and I really liked them. So it's kind of like a walking
I
around the
love
snowy
that.
streets of New York City memory. So very, very glamorous
I
in my
mean,
mind.
now you live in the sunny, hot streets of Los Angeles, so it's a
Right,
little bit different, but
right. It's 90
maybe
degrees today.
that's disgusting. I'm
Yeah,
not okay
I'm
with
getting
that.
a holiday tan.
Maybe you can make it a new holiday tradition is to introduce roasting chestnuts to all of your West Coast friends, because as a person from the West Coast, I can tell you it has never been a part of my holiday experience, and I would have loved that. So I think you should bring roasted chestnuts to the West
Oh,
Coast,
I'll
California.
I'll Google how to roast them and I'll get some and I'll do it for the
Perfect.
friends Christmas.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let's go from chestnuts to chests and
And
nuts.
nuts.
Do you like that
I love
segue?
I love the page that we're on.
Oh my gosh. So today's reading selection is Santa Claus is Going to Town on Me by Marie Lipscomb, although she is writing under the pen name M.L. Eliza for this one. And this fantastical holiday novella was published just last month, November of 2021. It's available on Amazon for $2.99 Kindle edition. Now, Isabella and I were lucky enough to receive early copies of the book, so major thanks to Marie for those. And today's giveaway winner will be taking home their own signed copy of Santa Claus is Going to Town on Me. So, congrats to whoever the winner of today's giveaway is. You have got a treat in store for you.
That is a good gift to receive under your tree.
I honestly might get myself a signed copy of this book too, just to have as like a paperback on
I
my
want it.
shelf.
I
Like,
want it to give to people. I do have to say, as soon as I finished it, I had to FaceTime some friends and tell them I have the greatest book for you come Christmas time.
there you go. See, this is what I want to hear. I want to
It's
hear
a
about
stocking
people
stuffer.
spreading romance joy. This is exactly a stocking stuffer. And you know what book you should get to go with it is one of our previous Boobsmas reads, Stocking Stuffers.
Ooh,
There
stuff
you
my
go.
stocking.
Yep, it's full of sex toys and the holidays and lots of like food. It's basically like Great British Bake Off, but like if you were trapped in an inn because of a snowstorm, and then you also whipped out your sex toys.
Well, we had some supernatural sex toys, or superhuman, maybe I should say.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So let me give everyone the brief Amazon synopsis for this book, and then we will dive in to our discussion. I also have a few fun facts about Santa, so those are coming too, but let's start with the synopsis, and it goes like this. I've always hated Christmas, but this year will be different because this year, Santa Claus is jingling me all the way. Take a shot. When Holly wakes up on Christmas Eve to find an intruder in her home, she does what anyone else would, grabs her replica medieval broadsword and sneaks downstairs to deal with him. I'm going to pause right there because that is just, if anybody has read Marie Lipscomb before, you know that she writes a lot of I don't know if they're considered like Highlander romance, but it's some sort of like
Mm.
historical romance where if you look at the cover of those books, these are like big burly chested men and they are carrying swords and wearing tartan, kilts, and
Yeah.
so it's a nice little like call out to her other books that she writes, that her heroine in this book just happens to have a medieval broadsword, sitting
Her
beside her
heroine
bed.
probably has read her other books, don't you think?
I think so. She probably has a copy of her books like on the nightstand. Also, I challenge anybody to read a holiday romance that does not feature a heroine named Holly, Noel, Christmas, or Eve. Like, it is very difficult to find one. So I just want to put that out there.
Hilarious.
But he isn't a burglar. He wears a big red coat, big brown boots, and his big round belly shakes like a bowl full of jelly. He's Santa Claus. He's thick and he's hot. I'm a little disappointed that when it says he's thick, it's not spelled with 2 C's. Marie, I think this is something that you should reconsider.
It's a cultural update.
Yeah, exactly.
Merriam-Webster, if you're listening.
Yeah, come on, make these changes. What begins as a simple misunderstanding develops into a passion Holly never knew she needed with a man who knows her every want and desire. But Holly has a secret, one she can't ever let Klaus discover. The true reason she hates Christmas. And that kind of ties into the content warning that is issued in the book, and also one that I will issue for listeners of the podcast, and that is loss of a parent and mentions of a car accident, because that ties directly in with the secret that Holly has that we do find out more about as the story goes on, and that she, of course, does share with her Santa man later on. But before we talk about the book, I did just want to tell everybody about some research that I did surrounding the sexual fascination with Santa Claus, which Urban Dictionary has described or defined as Santaphilia, otherwise known as a sexual obsession or fetish with Santa Claus. Now, if you're thinking like, oh my gosh, that's like, 2 people. Like, nobody fantasizes about Santa. First of all, Isabella and I can both attest to the fact if you've read this book, you are going to be thinking about Santa in a whole different way.
There are at least 2 people, and it's the 2 of us.
It's the 2 of us. But secondly, I actually did find this survey. This is a 2008 survey conducted by BeNaughty.com. I don't know anything about BeNaughty.com. I also know that this survey was conducted over a decade ago, so I'm not sure how the results have changed. But in this particular survey, over 12,000 female members were surveyed and asked the question, do you find Santa Claus sexy or fanciable? And the reason they say fanciable is because this was also a survey conducted in the UK. Now, of the 12,000 women surveyed, I would love to know, Isabella, what percentage do you think said, yes, they find Santa sexy?
Well, let's see, because I was going to guess around 9,000, so that would be like 3/4, 75%. No, that sounds low. 84.
That sounds low.
84. I think anybody who says they don't like Santa is lying to themselves, so I'm going to guess 84.
Now, you are overestimating just a tad. It's 20%. But to me, I was thinking like maybe like 1 in 10. So the fact that it's like, 2 in 10 people, 20% find him sexy or fanciable. I thought that was pretty good. And let's be honest, in surveys, I always assume that there's like a large chunk of people who also are like too embarrassed or like guilt-ridden to like admit, yes. Especially when it comes to like fantasies and like sexual proclivities. So yeah, I'm gonna guess it's more.
3 out of 10. We're calling it 3 out of 10.
Yeah, we gotta throw in, and you know what? There's 2 of us, so I mean that's 4. Like I'm gonna say it's like more like 4
I'm gonna
in
say
10.
It's more like 84%.
The other part of the survey asked 11, and this one was great. They included men in this survey as well. They said, in addition, 11,000 male and female members were also surveyed and asked if they had ever dressed as Santa or Mrs. Claus in the bedroom.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And this one was actually the one that I thought was much lower than it would have been because only 10% said yes.
That's surprising because of all of the Santa or Christmas themed lingerie that we see around the holiday time in stores.
Yes, I, for one, I don't have anything that I would deem like Mrs. Claus, but I do have a matching bra and panty set that is red and it has candy canes embroidered across the nipples.
So it's Christmas. It's
how
does that count? Maybe you're not role playing as them, but you're Christmas themed.
Yeah, but you're right. There is so much, and I think, you know, whether you're shopping for lingerie or not, like anybody, especially women, would also recognize the fact that there is a large market of lingerie, you know, marketed towards us every year that is very much like Mrs. Claus-esque.
Yes, the little red with the white.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Now, it got me thinking, though. I was like thinking about what is it that draws people to Santa as like a, you know, sexy figure. And I've come up with like a couple hypotheses, but I want to ask you first, like, first of all, have you ever found yourself sexually attracted to Santa? I mean, maybe that's changed since reading this book, but the second part, the follow-up to that is, why do you think people are attracted to Santa?
Yes. Well, I think I wasn't sure if you knew what you were doing picking this book for me to read, but I thought it was really funny because I feel like I am the one to be like having like a weird sexual thing for somebody I shouldn't, like a cartoon character or like Santa, you know? So I thought this was on brand for me. Love a silver fox. I think it's a combination of somebody that will spoil you, silver fox sort of a thing. And I will say Santa in this novel was very stylish. I thought he had good clothing. She definitely described him as a little sexier.
Yeah, he was hip.
Oh, he was hot. He was real hot. So I think it's like maybe not the jolly Santa is not the one that I've ever been sexually interested in. But like a sexy silver fox, you could dress up as Santa. Yeah. For me, I'd be okay with it.
No, I'm with you. I think like visually, I think like the beard and the silver fox thing ticks a lot of people's boxes.
Yeah, I love facial hair too.
Same.
That's a good one.
I think a lot of people are really attracted to a bigger man because one, there's like the cuddly aspect of it. Yeah. And then also like we naturally kind of associate like a bigger man with being like more protective, like being able to like protect you and take care of you. And like that coupled with the fact that I think people love a man in uniform, and like really, if you think about it,
it's goofy, but it is a uniform.
It is a uniform, and I mean, in this book,
she even touches on that in the book. She touches on it.
Yeah,
well, she touches on it.
Yeah, she does. She does more than touch on it. Like so much touching. And then if you really think about it, like he really is kind of like he's like a daddy dom. Like, I mean, he's
daddy.
There's the whole idea of like, you have to be nice in order to like get my presents.
Like naughty or nice.
Yeah. Like. Exactly. You have to follow the rules in order for me to like reward you. And then of course,
I was thinking about that.
Sitting on his lap. I mean, that's the other thing is like,
so it is all very erotic. You're right. There's so many things that I missed out on. You're so right.
No, and I'm not a parent. And so I'm just like thinking about the fact that we've like we're thinking about Santa in a very specific way as adult women that I'm like, I don't know if I'd be okay with putting my child on Santa's lap, thinking the things I'm thinking about Santa.
And then on a stranger's lap, and then he goes, tell me what you want.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Hello. Like, I mean, this is why there should be Santas available for like grown ass people to go sit on their laps for like fulfilling their every wish and desires.
The holidays. Hilarious. There's now that there's literally I just watched an episode of Family Guy of all things where he asks his daughter Meg to take the baby to Santa, and she sits on the baby's throwing a fit, so she sits on Santa's lap with him, and she orgasms as he's bouncing her on his knee. So it's a joke, like it's in pop culture. There's for it to be a joke, it has to ring true for some people.
Yeah, and I think a good amount of people, like not one or two people, but like enough people where they'll be like, oh yeah, that's true. Like
Right?
I hadn't really thought about like why I was so attracted to Santa before. So if anybody else is like us and you've read this book or not, or you're going to go pick it up right after this podcast, it is okay if you are having these thoughts and feelings towards the man in red.
Really, once you started listing all the reasons why you think people are attracted to him, I did realize it's really not as weird as we think it is.
Yeah, and you would just do a quick Google search and you will find plenty of articles and different blog posts that just kind of are alluding to the same fact of like, what is it about this man that we find so fascinating? So
oh my gosh, Christmas is so erotic for me now.
I know, changes everything. Game changer for sure. Well, and let's talk about this specific iteration of Santa Claus in Maria's book, because
this might be one of my favorite Santas of my life.
And this is my second Santarotica book that I've read. Last year I read Ellie Mae McGregor's The Naughty List, which is I think an even shorter read. It's like super bite-sized, like maybe like 50 pages or less. And what I love about both of those stories is that they both feature a plus-size heroine, which I was like, fantastic. There's absolutely like zero shame attached. It's very much just like, let's get down. This man's hot. He's going to worship her body. He's got some magic in him.
There's no insecurity.
No. And there's no
reason for there to be any.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He's going to make you orgasm.
He sees you when you're sleeping. In the nude.
In the nude. Well, and what I love about this specific version of Santa is all of the different like lore that like Marie's come up with for him, because like this is why I don't read a lot of paranormal, I don't read a lot of fantasy, and it's because there's so much detail in it. And I know that you need that detail to like really buy into the full experience, but for me, I'm a lazy reader. So like if somebody's like, I have a 4-book series that takes place in this paranormal universe and you have to learn all these rules,
learn the things, but Santa, we've already got so many associations, and she did a great job of drawing on things that everybody knows, like candy canes or hot cocoa,
and then just expanding on them. Like, let's talk about
it in like an interestingly erotic situation. You're like, ooh,
like starting with the fact that his jizz tastes like peppermint.
Crazy.
I think that's definitely one of the things worth noting. I also happen to love, and I found this interesting, that not only does Santa Claus put on a condom when he's having sex with Holly.
There's a lot of condom.
Yep, but it's also a candy cane condom.
It was a candy cane striped condom. It really got me that they used condoms. I really liked it, and I thought maybe, I wasn't sure if it was like a subtle like safe sex plug, but he also then brought up, I don't know what my superhuman peppermint cum is going to do to your mortal human body. So there was a little supernaturalness to it also.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't read a lot of paranormal or fantasy, so when I read contemporary though, I have an expectation that there will be whether it's condom use or like a discussion about somebody being on the pill or whatever it is, like it's become a lot more normalized in the last few years that there are discussions about birth control.
Good. That was my question, because I really don't, I know we didn't touch upon this, but really my main exposure to reading romance is through you. So I really don't know what, and it's mostly been Christmas. So I don't know what's really happening.
Our first book that we read together was historical. And obviously like the birth control options were very limited at that time. So when I do read contemporary, I expect there to be some kind of talk about birth control, but even though this story takes place like modern day, because there's like the fantastical.
Yeah, I didn't expect it because it was supernatural. So, and it was almost like celebrities. They're just like us. Like Santa, he still uses condoms. Like he's magic, but he uses condoms.
That's the Us magazine celebrities. They're just like us that I missed.
I love it.
We're going to petition Us Magazine to include that. So
Right.
the other thing I absolutely love about this book is this is probably one of the most quotable books that I've read this year. Like, I mean, the amount of highlights I have got on my Kindle is obscene because they're I mean, do you have a few that you want to share? Because I know I've got a few, and they can
Oh
be
yeah, let me
sexy or
pull them
not,
up.
like whatever.
When I tell you I was cackling,
Starting
cackling.
with God, he's a stern Christmas daddy.
That was the first one that I
Yeah,
highlighted because he was a stern Christmas daddy.
he was.
Right in the
Period.
first chapter, the minute this woman sees Santa, she's wet. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's aroused instantly. And so he definitely is magic. But so they haven't slept together yet, but they've kind of talked about how he's coming back and they're
Mm-hmm.
going to. And she says, mentally, I'm over 3,000 miles away at the North Pole, bare-assed and sitting on Santa's lap. I liked that.
Love it. Love it. I've got every year since I was 4, I've hated Christmas, but I know tomorrow will be different because tomorrow I'm going to fuck Santa Claus.
I also liked, I didn't realize that she put this in the little synopsis that you read at the beginning, but she talks about how he's going to jingle her all the way.
Yes.
I
It's
love
so
that.
good. Let's talk about his magic too, because like the amount of, again, it's all about like creating the rules and the lore that like surround a world, right? When there's like
Yes.
fantasy elements in it. And so
Yes.
I liked that we got to see, you know, him flying his sleigh. They even have sex in the sleigh at one point.
Midair.
Midair, you know, it's like flying up, down, left, right, whatever.
And she also asks him before they take off on the sleigh, she asks him to put on the Santa suit.
Yep. Yeah,
So it's
she's
all part of the
real into
fantasy.
it.
She's
Yeah.
into it.
Because when they first meet, he basically is giving her presents, but thinks she's a different Holly than the one that she is. And
Yeah, he mixes up the addresses and he thinks he's
yeah.
at some 8-year-old's house and instead it's this sexy lady.
And they make, I kind of liked that they don't just like have sex then and there. He's like, I actually have a job to do. I have
Yeah,
like
he's got a job to
presents.
do. I was gonna say that.
Yeah. And so, you know, he's like, I'll come back like when I'm all done and we'll like, you know, have our little Christmas party to ourselves. So, and that's kind of where I really liked when we got to see like he can travel and like transport them like back and forth between where she lives in, you know, modern day America and the
Hmm.
North Pole, like at the blink of an eye. Like they can just be at the North Pole and he can go back to doing his
Right.
thing. I
And
thought that was cool.
yes, I was getting the same sort of anxiety throughout the book as she was of like,
Yes.
this is clearly too special of a connection for you to just never see him again, but
Mm-hmm.
how the F are you going to make this work? So
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure throughout, I wasn't sure if it was going to come to the resolution that I wanted it to.
That's
So,
always my biggest hesitation when it comes to like, you know, some sort of like time travel romance. And I know that this isn't necessarily like a time travel, but there's like this other
there's some
world.
elements of a
Yeah.
different dimension and time moving differently and
Because I'm like, how is this going to work? One of them is always going to have to like make sacrifices. Like they have to leave their time to be with the other person, or, you know, they have to leave their job and all they do. And so I liked that, you know, by the end, they do find this like happy medium where it's like they can be together when they want to be together, while still existing in their own worlds and also in each other's worlds because of the power of magic. What I really loved was the magic, because the magic goes beyond the transporting between like the different locations. When he brings the magic to the bedroom, let
mm,
let me tell you, because we have got like magic sex toys that are like clit sucking. We have got, I think my favorite part is when there's like some bondage with like ribbons where it's like they literally just like slide up the bed and are like suddenly like tying her hands to like the bedpost. I'm like, oh,
mm.
that's cute.
Well, let me say, I guess I don't really know what I was expecting, but I guess I didn't expect him to have superpowers going into this. Like, I kind of,
Mm,
obviously, he can fly through the sky on his sleigh and go around the world in one night and stuff, but I don't know, I didn't expect him to have powers, so all of a sudden this stuff started happening and I was cackling and aroused at the same time, laughing so hard and being like, but wait, I can't tear my eyes away from the page.
Yeah, like, wait, he's like, tying her up and she's getting her clit sucked, but like also it's like snowing in the bedroom. Like,
Right. I'm sure. And sometimes she was just like her language, like her inner narrative just had me laughing.
Yeah, I love it. And this is what I love about Marie's books. And I've read several of Marie's books. And it could be one, I love the fact that you have somebody who's writing not only plus size women, but also plus size male characters with zero hint of like body shaming. Like they are all very much fine with their bodies. It is not a narrative about them becoming skinny. It is not a narrative about them being body conscious.
In fact, quite the contrary with this one, because he, if it isn't a spoiler, he can control his size, and that's kind of how he gets into chimneys.
Yeah.
He can make his body shrink or grow. Wink, wink in the bedroom as well. But his resting size around Holly, the main character, is this like larger, burlier 7-foot man.
Yeah.
And because he knows that that's what she likes. So not only are we not like shaming or working toward being skinny, in fact, we're growing ourselves to appease this taste. So
yeah, no, and that's been pretty consistent across Marie's different books. And I really appreciate that, specifically as a fat woman. It's like I want to see not just fat women, but also fat men, fat people in general, and just loving the body that they're in and not making it about their body itself. Like that's just a piece of them. It's not their entire being. Like physically that is their being, but like there's so much more than, what size pants they wear.
So much going down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was really sexy.
Exactly. And that's the thing is they both found each other so sexy that it's like, that's all that matters. Like it doesn't matter like what size they are. They're really into each other's bodies.
She kept saying he's saying my name as if I'm this like supernatural creature that he can't believe exists. And the whole time he's the one. One of my favorite quotes of the whole book was she goes, "Eat my ass, all other humans." And I thought it was so funny. She's like, there's one Santa Claus and he's magic and it's only him. Yeah. And he wants nothing more in the world but me.
One of the first things I thought about, and again, this is something that Holly asks him in the book. So I'm glad that, my mind, like anytime I had questions or like concerns, it was usually addressed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And one of the first ones I think is, well, when I think of Santa, I also think of him having a Mrs. Claus.
Right.
And so that is something that Holly asks him of like, is there like a Mrs. Claus? And he's like, there was, she passed away, like, because I live for, ever and other people don't. So it's kind of nice to see like he's, had his own loss to go along with the fact that Holly's had a loss. Although for her, it was her dad.
Yeah. But they even talk about how I think he says perhaps our hearts are drawn to one another because of this feeling of loss that we've shared.
Yeah. I liked that a lot. And I always, especially in like a single parent romance or in a romance where like one of the characters is a widow or widower, like I always like the mention of that this new person that's in their life is not there to like replace the person that they've had before. Like you don't need to be like
you acknowledge
the replacement. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that was really respectfully done when it came to like Mrs. Claus.
Yes, there was clearly so much love and sorrow, even though he's moved on.
Yeah.
But there's no regret and there's no sort of like shame around I always have felt so off about how people feel weird talking about their exes.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, obviously, if somebody is like lingering on their ex and constantly talking about them, but we should be able to acknowledge our past experiences, in an ideal world, with love and compassion for what once was and from the lessons that we learned from it. And so much of his sensitivity to Holly's needs as a human being, you could tell came from this experience that he had with Mrs. Claus, who was also a human being, and
Yeah.
who he watched grow old and die in a way that he couldn't. And so he brought that sensitivity into this, and that hesitation almost, or the care, into a new relationship.
Exactly. The fact that he was like, look, I had this fantastic love, and I did lose her because one of
We're
the
different.
one of the things that's difficult about being Santa Claus is that I'm not getting older. I'm not aging. I am hundreds and hundreds of years old, and I'm watching the people that I've loved who are human like pass away eventually. And that's got to be a hard thing to go into a relationship with too, is just like this knowledge of like, I love this person, I want to share my life with them, but my life is going to continue even when they're gone. And that's going to be that's a really hard thing to go into a relationship already having that knowledge.
But it's like, because of his whole existence and everything about him, and then because of her experiences with Christmas and her knowledge that they really connected up front and shared a lot about each other's lives up front, like they both were kind of forced to, to have the serious conversations right off the bat, which almost opened them up to having this incredibly strong relationship when they've just met, because neither of them the stakes are too high for them to not talk about, well, how are we going to see each other? Well, here are my feelings on Christmas. Well, here's where my heart, it hurts. You know what I mean?
It kind of reminds me, I actually just saw, I think it was in one of my Facebook groups that I'm part of, where somebody had shared this like funny meme, and the prompt with it was, why is it that we have this idea that like you're supposed to go on a certain amount of dates before you have sex with somebody? Because I had sex with my now husband of 20 years on the first date, and like we're happily married. Like, who else had sex with their partner on like the first date? And there were so many women in this group commenting that were like, my husband was supposed to be a one-night stand and he never left.
Right.
Or, that just, it just opens you up. And that's not me saying that like if you wait to have sex till you get married, if you wait until you're together for a few years.
But it's whatever floats each individual boat, or each duo's boat. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was something else that I liked about this book, is in my experience with romance films, etc., you see them falling in love, and then the sex is this like later on big climb, but they're already in love at that point. And at least in my life, or in the lives of the people around me that I've been close to and shared stories with, like that just isn't how it works, at least where I am, or maybe it's a more modern thing. But a lot of my experiences have started as lust and then developed into something more. And so it was cool to see that happening, because I'm a hopeless romantic once you warm me up. But at first I'm like, F that ish, you know what I mean? So for her to start out sexual, I was like, I can get into this. And then all of a sudden she starts falling for him. And I was like, oh no, because now I'm falling for him. And I just wanted to have sex with Santa. And now I've got feelings that are outlasting this book. So
yeah, no, it's so true. And it's something, like as somebody who grew up loving romantic comedies, like I was raised on like movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, like, and just sort of like segueing into like the more modern romances. And even those are still very much in tune with, you wait to have sex with the right person. Yeah, there's an order.
Like made up like chronological order.
And we've done that. We've made this order ourselves and said that this is the way and the only way that it's supposed to be done. And I think that's just kind of been such a major hindrance on real romantic, and I'd even say just like friendship, non-sexual relationships too, of just like how things are supposed to go. So
I think it expands to so many categories of life that I think your generation and my generation are the ones that are starting to break down the made up steps.
Exactly.
And that things are supposed to, even when you think about how many people now had incredible careers and didn't go to college, which used to be an abomination to not go to college. So all different categories of life, we're starting to break down the like kind of
the norms,
irrelevant
the quote
order of
unquote.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah, or
exactly.
married with 2 kids, or then we retire. So it's cool to see it reflected
Yeah,
in the literature and in the pop culture that we're now absorbing. And the younger generations are going to be absorbing this literature.
exactly. And then the more that it's like we embrace it in our real lives and then we put it back into our media and then we embrace it in our real
Yeah,
lives. It's this give and take that
the
will just
mirror.
continue to normalize these ideas in to the point where we won't question watching a commercial on TV. I mean, we shouldn't now, but we won't question watching a commercial on TV 5 years from now where you see two men kissing and you're like,
Right.
oh, wow, how progressive of them. It's
Like, good
just,
for Hyundai. It
it's,
should just be like
it's
normal.
just
I
that is
shouldn't even
just a
celebrate them
relationship.
for that. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is, I hope in my lifetime at some point that becomes the, new normal, for lack of a better word. Like
Yeah.
I want that to be something that I experience in my lifetime. So, I
Always acknowledge where we came from and the struggles
exactly,
that those people went through, but we can the more we treat it like normal, the more it is normal in a
yeah,
way.
exactly.
I don't know, I think I'm looking for like a Christmas daddy now.
Yeah, in real life or like more books, because I'll
Probably
take it
both.
all.
Probably both.
Did you have a specific sexcerpt that you wanted to share with the class here?
um
Because there are plenty to
it
choose
was a
from.
lot of yeah, it was a lot of one-off lines.
So
Something
good.
about, and it was usually like, there were some I highlighted because it was like, oh, as my friend, I have a good friend who talks about her spank bank. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, absolutely.
So there are a couple lines that were getting tucked away in the spank bank. I more so highlighted the ones that were like hilarious to me, like, whenever he comes, his jizz smells like peppermint, and now I want to lick that candy cane.
Yes.
Hilarious. One note I had was that she used the word creamy quite often for things that I would never call creamy.
Ooh, I'm going to need some examples.
Yeah, so she's taking a bath and she says, as I lather the creamy soap over my body. I was like, I've just never have taken a shower and thought the soap was creamy. Thought it was an interesting one, but I loved it. It kind of added a little bit of erotic energy into the non-erotic things, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
especially
Like,
because like creamy or cream is something that in romance we usually apply more
exactly.
towards specifically like vaginal juices.
Yeah, and it's the heroine's point of view, so it's her inner
Yeah.
narrative, so it shows where her subconscious is, which I thought was funny. But another one was, she like, there were like three different instances where she described, he keeps Santa, or Klaus if you will, was
Yes.
wearing like these thick wool fisherman sweaters, which I loved his style.
So
But
hot.
she described the sweater as creamy on like three different occasions. He pulled off his creamy fisherman sweater, or he came down the stairs in a burgundy, creamy, thick, juicy,
It's
delicious wool
very
sweater.
luscious.
Yeah, the word creamy just kept coming up for me, and I kept being
Num
like,
num 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 num.
oh, yeah,
I like what you said though. It very much seems like it is like eroticizing, like things that aren't necessarily like erotic, but like it's giving them the sense that they are like this man in a really nice sweater. That's erotic.
exactly. And it is where her mind is
This
at whenever she's
bath.
with him. And I also love,
Yeah.
with you're talking about like no shame of bodies or sizes or anything,
Mhm.
also no shame of like bizarre kink. Like, there are so many times where she goes, this should be weird, but I'm really horny and I don't give a F. And I loved that there's like
Yeah.
no weirdness about her fucking Santa Claus.
Good. That's yeah,
She was
I'm
just
all
asking
for
to
it.
go for a ride on the sleigh. She was asking.
She took a ride indeed on that sleigh.
There was another sentence where she said, I can't find where I saved it, but it was something like, if you had told me 2 days ago that I would be riding Santa's
I
sleigh
have it.
and dick at the same time, I wouldn't have believed you.
I definitely have that one saved. I'm looking for it, but I also have normally those things would hurt. But today I'm just counting down the seconds before I get that Santa dick.
Lots of, Santa dick.
Oh, yeah. 2 days ago, if you told me I would be riding Santa's sleigh and his dick at the same time, I'd have laughed in your face. Let me read you the sexcerpt that I've chosen. I honestly highlighted like 5 or 6, and there are at least 5 or 6. There are plenty to choose from in this novella. This is actually when she goes down on him.
Oh, was that not the hottest part of the book?
It is like
the blowjob?
a very hot blowjob scene. And like,
it was the best blowjob ever.
This is the difference between anytime anybody describes romance as like mommy porn, this is like the first thing I think of is that the main difference is when you watch porn and you see a blowjob scene, it is never about the woman's pleasure. It is never about the person's pleasure who is giving the blowjob. In romance, blowjob scenes give the person who is giving the blowjob just as much pleasure and power. It's so good.
I think we see a lot in, at least growing up, like you see a lot of like expectations placed on women to please a man.
Yes.
Expectation that the woman will give the man oral, but the man won't necessarily give the woman oral. Expectation that it just escalates in that direction. Even if it doesn't go to sex, the man always gets oral. So, and I love that it sounds like in romance, it's always actually derived from the giver's desire to give rather than a feeling of, oh, I should.
Yeah, I would say at least in the bulk of the romance that I've read, and I think anybody who, I wouldn't necessarily call their relationship like dom sub, but I think that there are elements in there, and I think anybody who does have like a dom sub relationship would tell you that there's a very high emphasis on trust between, you know, the pairing. And also, like, as a submissive, even though you're not maybe the one giving the orders, you're really the one who's kind of calling the show. Like, you get to call a stop to things. It's very much about your pleasure. Like, what is going to give you pleasure?
The one that really has the power.
Yeah.
If you're doing that sort of relationship right.
Exactly. And so that's kind of what I really liked about this scene is like, it is a very hot blowjob scene. I mean, yes, we get to hear about his jizz is smelling and tasting like peppermint, which is fantastic.
But that's also good for her.
Exactly. But let me
it's all good for her. Even his moans, you know, are good for her.
Yeah. So let me give everyone a little taste, if you will, of this scene. And I'll start from right after the same line that Isabella shared about whenever he comes, his jizz smells like peppermint. And now I want to lick that candy cane. Are you sure? He asks, his deep voice hoarse as I climb down from his lap. I'm already on my knees, untucking the end of his towel from his hip. I want to taste you. He groans as he leans back against the cushions, thick thighs parted, his rigid cock standing to attention and straining toward me. I run my fingers through his silver pubes. How amazing is that? His pubes are silver.
I know. And probably snowy, icy, frosty, and glittery.
A little chilly, too. And up over the swell of his stomach, biting my lip as he flinches at my touch. Ticklish? He nods, his eyes half closed as a bead of clear pre-cum slides down the underside of his shaft. He definitely doesn't seem to mind, so I run my fingertips down his sides, making him squirm, working my way lower until I can run my nails along the lengths of his thighs. Leaning forward, I take him into my mouth, cupping his balls in my hands as I suck his dick. He moans deep and low, his hips bucking against the couch as I lick the length of him. Holly, he whispers as I take him deeper. Oh, it's so good. But no, you know what? I want to keep going. There's a little bit more.
Continue.
My lips and tongue slide up and down, each stroke earning me a desperate, deep, and breathless moan. He's the perfect size. Not so long I have to fight and gag to take him all, but thick and hot against my tongue. And mine. Right now, he's all mine. At this moment, I'm the only thing that matters to him in the whole world. Christmas could come and go and he'd still be here, his head back against the couch cushions, his throat bobbing, his knuckles pale as he grips his thighs. Oh my God.
Crazy. And then a little bit later on, she talks about how she like grips his hands and pins them down and like, take control, girl.
So
I loved it.
good. And taking control of like a 7-foot
bigger
burly
man.
dude, like that's real hot.
And that's the uniform thing too. I think that's another like, it's always been a little authority thing for me. Like I was always the one to have a crush on a teacher, you know what I mean, or a crush on my boss. So it's like, you know, he's Santa. Let me pin you down, Santa.
Well, needless to say, I think we both thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is one that I would absolutely recommend to anybody to pick up during the holiday season. And like Isabella said, it make a great stocking stuffer for the romance reader in your life, or somebody that you just want to give a copy to so you can talk about this book with somebody else.
Exactly. And I do think it's a good one for people that aren't big, like that haven't read a lot of romance, or maybe don't think they're in. Like, I'm gonna give it to one of my guy friends because I know it'll make him laugh, and he'll get hooked on the story.
Yes,
you know what I mean. So because the story is also really good, so it's not just the romance and it's a lot of sex, but both of them as characters are really sweet. Like, you really like them both, and then you connect to her story, and you connect to a lot of the emotions she feels, the guilt of getting everything you've ever wanted and not wanting it anymore, like all these different emotions. So I think it's a funny way to kind of like trick somebody into actually getting hooked to it. You know what I mean? Because
I trick people all the time, and I say, look, you know, it's so funny the amount of people who do this podcast with me who will read and be like, I thought this was going to be so much sex, and that's it. There was actually a really good story. Yes, that's right. This is a billion-dollar industry built on beautiful stories and romances. So take that to the bank.
I had an almost not opposite, but an almost flipped experience of like, I think the last one was a little more of a slow burn and a little more of like romantic interest that slowly enveloped into, you know, intimacy. But like, when she, like I said, when she hit us out the bed, this one was a lot more pornographic than I was expecting. And it caught me off guard. It made me laugh, and it made me really gripped. I really liked it. So
yeah, good. I'm glad. Such a funny couple of experiences to like juxtapose, because they really are complete opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to romance.
Yeah, but both really great. You have wonderful authors in your pockets and always wonderful experiences.
I'm thankful, and there's always more coming out too. So there's always another book.
Oh no, it's such a huge industry that I feel like people that aren't into it or know a lot about it just don't know. Like I told you I called my friend, and she was like, so is this an older book? And I was like, no. I was like, people are writing romance every single day. Like, but she just didn't know. She was like, oh my God, she's so excited to read it. So I'm very excited.
Sounds like we have another potential guest for the podcast.
I told her I wanted to connect you guys anyway, because I think she would love you and vice versa. And she was like, oh, send me her Instagram, send me the Boobies and Newbies page.
I love that.
We'll start following you. So I'll tell her to reach out. But
that's awesome. Yeah. And I will say, if anybody else is listening and you're like, hey, I've like really wanted to introduce like a specific friend to romance, like connect me with them. Like, honestly, I'd love that, or you connect with me, because I get so many people who are like former guests of the podcast or just friends of friends who will say, you know, hey, I want my friend to like do an episode with you. They've never read a romance. And it's great. I love just kind of like this chain of events that's happening with like one person leads to another, and that's the whole reason.
It's all about the exposure too of the industry, like of this niche genre, and of these authors that work so hard and are incredible writers. And I feel like you are a great person to go to for that sort of thing, because you know so much about the genre and you just know so many titles that I could be like, this person is not going to fly with this or that. they might like this, and you'll know exactly, or like
I'll
this
try.
person won't do, so
yes. And I will not pretend like I know everything. There are plenty of things that I don't read or have not read yet. There are so many books and authors out in the world. However, I also, even as an experienced romance reader, never hesitate to ask for help. If there's something that I'm looking for and don't know how to find it, there are other bloggers, there are other podcasters that I am happy to seek out and, say, hey, I'm looking for a holiday romance specifically featuring Black characters that takes place in the South. What do you got for me? Like, that's
such a fun and compassionate community.
Yeah, it definitely has. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of love, and believe me, if you fight back against the romance community, whoo, you are in for a treat. So now that we've come to the close, we are going to give this book a few grades. And normally for this podcast, we grade for heart, humor, and heat, but I have added a fourth rating for the 12 Days of Boobsmas, and that is holiday. So heart, humor, heat, and holiday on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be, subjectively for you, of course. And we will start with heart. What do you think?
Okay. Can I start? Sorry to throw you off. Can I start with holiday? Because that's the one that I've got. Because I honestly think I might have to give it like a 9 or a 10 for holiday, because it really, there's not a single sentence that isn't holiday or sex.
No, it's a 10 for me too. It is like,
I think it's a 10 for holiday. And also specifically because it's not just happy-go-lucky Christmas vibes. There's a lot of sadness and guilt tied in, or like negative experiences that are like trauma bonded to the idea of Christmas. So, like, it's a very complex and comprehensive emotional experience of the holiday. So I think it was a very well-rounded holiday story.
I think that's really accurate, and we started this podcast talking about how, we both spent at least a portion of the holidays by ourselves in 2020. And
it was so different.
That's something that a lot of people do experience. Like, as much as I love watching, Lifetime and Hallmark Christmas movies, and I love reading holiday romances as well, I do like to see stories where characters are maybe feeling a little bit lonelier around the holidays, or having, they're missing their families. And
holidays are a highly emotional time on both ends of the spectrum. So it was really nice to see that, because I also have not always had the greatest holidays. So
yeah. Fair. Well, now that we've done the holidays, which I think I'm with you, I think between holidays and heat, although I think heart too, but I think the holidays and the heat are very high.
Yeah, heat. I think holiday and heat, I will both give a 10.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there is a sentence where you don't have something about the holidays, something about sex, or both. I think every single sentence has something in there.
If it's not about Santa's dick, it's about like the smell of peppermint in the air. Like, there's always something to remind you that it is Christmas and that she about to get down with Santa. So and you know what? Normally I would say I'm going to give the heat a 10 too, because it's, I will tell people, if like you really love an erotic story, like if you read Katie Robert, if you read Fiona Cole, if you read something where there's like high BDSM or multiple partners or butt stuff, like butt stuff to me is always like the time when you bridge the gap to like the extremely, extremely sexy. And I don't think it goes so far out there as far as how kinky it gets.
It's not outrageously kinky,
but
it is very hot.
Yeah, I think it's plenty hot, and I think it's kinky enough. I mean, we got her tied spread eagle to a bed with ribbons. There are sex toys. Like, I mean, I think it is plenty kinky enough.
There's many different positions.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we've got variety all day, all night. So I think I'm going to give this one a 10, because I do think it definitely ticked a lot of boxes. And there's plenty of it. I think it's a lot of the quantity as well that makes it a 10 for me.
Yes. And then the other two were heart and humor.
Yeah.
Okay. Heart, I also would put up there. It's a very emotional book.
Yeah, I don't know if I would hit 10, but I think I would
Right.
probably hit 9.
I think I would hit 9, 8 or 9.
Yeah.
It is a very emotional book. And then humor, I would also put up there. There were so many moments that I was like, I don't know if I was like, I don't know if she intended this to be as funny as it is, or if I'm just
I
laughing
think
because it's
she
Santa.
did. I
And
think
then
she
as I went on, like some of the wording, I was like, she's incredible. So yeah, I think humor I would put up there also, maybe like a 8,
Yeah.
a somewhere between like a 7 to a 9, maybe a 7 or an 8.
Well, and just for reference, if you read the very like it's like before we even get to page 1, the what I guess would be like the author's notes or the acknowledgement or something, all it
Mhm.
says is fuck it. This one's for me. And I was like, I love it. I love that Marie was just like,
Oh
you
my,
know what? I'm gonna write this sexy Santa book because I feel like it.
I
So
am so sad that I missed that before reading, because I read it on Apple Books, and it like opens you up. It skips the table of contents, like it just starts you on the
oh
page 1 of chapter
yeah.
1. So I didn't even scroll through anything. Like I just clicked it and it popped up. I'm
Yeah.
sad I missed that. That's really cute. I'm glad you told me.
Yeah, well there you go. And so I'm with you. This is and I think this is why I really enjoy Marie's books is you can tell like obviously there are so many romance books out there that are not super hilarious. There are so many romance books that are
Sure.
low heat but maybe high heart. Marie ticks all my boxes. Like my heart, humor, heat,
Yay.
holiday ratings are all like at least a 9. And so this book and her work in general speaks to what I like a lot.
I
And
agree. I think the humor also was a really key part to what kept me gripped,
yeah.
because I was having there were a couple of parts where I was like, oh, I need to pour myself a glass of wine for this. Like there were some parts where I was like, let's pause right here so I can get myself situated.
She gonna ride that dick and ride that sleigh.
Right? All at once, baby.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah,
was really
no.
excited for her.
High remarks across the board for this
Yeah, I'm
one.
a fan.
Yeah, I am too. Well, okay, so now having read Santa Claus is Going to Town on Me and having read a few other romances beforehand, I have to
Hmm.
ask, one, are you interested in reading more romance? And two, are you, maybe interested in reading something outside of the world of holiday romance or more holiday romance?
Yeah, I think the element of humor, because the last one was historical,
Mm-hmm.
obviously there were like awkward moments, like comedic moments, but it was just different. And humor was different too when you're using dated language. Like, I think I had more fun with this one. I enjoyed them both,
Good.
but I was like laughing more and it made me more invested. So I think I am interested. Like, I want more like goofy scenarios. Like I said, I like a weird scenario. I like a Santa. I think I would like some paranormal, but like you said, I don't want to like learn about a whole new world and learn a new language.
You might like a monster fucker.
Like a ghost or a vampire I could do.
Yeah.
I'll do Halloween next year.
Okay.
Inviting myself to be a guest again. I love it.
Maybe we won't even wait till Halloween. Maybe we'll do like monster fuckers in February or
Yeah, like a
something.
Valentine's Day spooky Valentine, my bloody
Yeah.
Valentine.
My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, maybe oh, is that kind of effed up, like a serial killer? But then she like, like
I
or like
don't
a
know if
criminal
I've
of some kind.
and there are those. There's definitely like a good amount of like criminal, serial killer,
It's almost like a bad
mafia.
boy sort of a thing, but like
Yeah,
to an extreme. I don't know. I don't want to
it's out
glorify a
there.
serial killer, but
Somebody else will if you don't.
it's done. Yeah, if it's been published.
Something to consider for the near future. But yeah, no, well, I'm so glad though that you've gotten kind of a nice taste of different parts of the romance spectrum. Like,
Yeah, and I wanted to say I really liked this author. I will look into this author specifically. So thank you.
yay! Oh, good. Yes, I'm glad. I will continue to pimp out Marie's books because
Good.
I am a fan as well. So she does have like a rock star series, and then she has a historical series.
Oh,
So
I wanted to be a little groupie, like a One Direction groupie. So
there you go. There you go. Now these are definitely not boy banders. These are like burly men who play
I
the
know, no, these are
drums.
like, yes. Well, that was my childhood. I'm ready for these burly ones.
You're like, that's when I was a little girl. Now I'm a woman.
Now I'm a 22-year-old.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so glad that we read this one. I'm so glad that I read this one with you. And I'm so happy that somebody else, at least one other person, will take home a copy of this book from our giveaway today.
Oh, yes.
And hopefully, if you're one of Isabella's friends, you're all getting
Oh,
books
yeah.
for Christmas.
There are plenty copies going out in this area.
Well, without further ado, I'm going to say one final thank you to Isabella for joining me today and remind everybody that on the 5th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 5 penis rings. Take it away, Cooper. Play us out.
On the 5th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 5 penis rings. Five penis rings. 4 tips of fucking, 3 butt plugs, 2 nipple clips, and a hot hookup underneath the tree.
Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Newbies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.